guys, how's it going? I love watching videos about world building and everything that entails. I'm such a huge fan of it. It's one of my passions. It's one of my favorite parts about writing fantasy. But I've noticed that a lot of times there are certain things that are just overlooked, and I decided that I'm going to make a video about a little thing. Maybe this can't make or break your novel, but it can definitely improve your world building, and that is swearing. Now, disclaimer before we get into it, if you're not the kind of person that likes listening to swear words, I'm gonna keep it like 14A. I'm not gonna go to rated R though. Now, maybe your story isn't gonna have any harsh language or a lot of swearing, and that's completely fine. But even mild curses are sometimes overlooked and kind of leave world building holes. I guess the first thing to decide is how much cursing is going to be in your novel, what level of it, how frequent, etc. Personally, I usually don't put much cursing into my own novels. I have nothing against cursing in novels, I just don't usually put it in. Now, the thing about curse words is they're almost always taken from cultural priorities and taboos. So for our world and English, think about words like damn and hell, and when people stub their toe and yell Jesus Christ. People use Jesus Christ as a curse word because that is a religious priority in Christianity, and using that in a negative way is powerful on some level. Words like damn is, you're being damned. The other big one, of course, is going to be sex. And this also encompasses like sex, sexual organs, etc. Like the F word, calling somebody a dick, calling somebody an asshole could kind of fall into that category, calling someone a prick, things like screw you and things like that, because sex is a taboo topic in a lot of cultures, so using that kind of gets that shock value that you want from cursing. The only other language that I speak fluently enough to give solid examples for is French. Now, I'm Canadian, I'm from Atlantic Canada, and a lot of French Canadians are very Roman Catholic. Basically, they're church words. So words like calice is a chalice, like the drinking goblet they have in church. I've heard hostie used as a curse word, which is that little circle bread type things that you eat in church. The strongest curse word would be like tabernacle, which is a room behind the altar, I think. I think it's tabernacle in English. I'm not Roman Catholic, I don't really know that much about this stuff. You may notice that a lot of these aren't inherently bad words. Like the little round church bread things, that's not something that's, dirty or profane in itself. It's just that thing you eat in church. But basically it's a curse word because it's a holy item used in a negative sense. I think it's kind of important to understand how curse words came about and kind of why they exist to understand how to make them for your own novel. For example, if your world's religion and religious system is completely different from Christianity, they're probably not going to say hell because hell probably doesn't exist. If they have a religion with like an equivalent to hell, like the world of the dead, underworld, etc., they can use that in place of it. But if you're writing in a world where the concept of hell doesn't exist, but your character gets really mad and yells at someone and says, "What the hell's going on here?" that doesn't make any sense. And there are so many different examples and situations where this can come into play. So say your novel takes place in a polyamorous culture. They're not going to call people bastards as an insult because the concept of a bastard, so somebody born without their mother being married to their father, might be completely irrelevant or non-existent in their culture. If it's a culture of nudists, they're probably not going to call people an asshole because to them, that's just another body part. It's like if I walked up to you and said, "Hey, leg." Now, I guess you could argue that bums are a dirty region because you poop from there, but you kind of know what I mean. So if your world is very different than ours, you might be asking, okay, I understand. What words should I or can I use? So the next step is picking, okay, well, what words could I use? Bless you. Comet has a cold right now. She's sneezing. It's okay. You could take curse words that we have and kind of find their equivalent. So maybe they can use the name of their god, maybe even the name of their king or something like that, and say it in a negative way or add something to it. It could be a trait that is really frowned upon in your world. So say your world is extremely intelligence focused and that's one of their biggest things. Words like stupid and different equivalents of that would be a lot more powerful. The downside of that is it might not translate as much to your reader, so you would have to find a way, probably through the character's reactions to getting called that name, to realize the significance of it, or you could just think of more intense words of that and go from there. Now, there are some real-world examples that could easily translate into fantasy. I see like bloody being used as a curse all the time in fantasy. Words like blasted, like all that blasted scoundrel, can go all the time, but they would definitely work in a fantasy novel without countering the world building. Another popular choice is in the name of blank, and whether that is your god or your anti-god. Also, depending on your story, you can get kind of goofy on it depending on kind of what your tone is and what the situation is. Say it's like a lighthearted moment, or it's a younger kid swearing and they're really mad at somebody. They might say, oh, King so-and-so's butt, or something like that. A lot of this is really, really going to depend on your world and how different it is from our world and what their values are and stuff like that. For me, I always just look at my main culture and society and think, okay, what is their biggest priority and what is their biggest taboo, and kind of go from there. If you want to keep it simple, basically just look at the curse words that you are using and just ask yourself if they make sense in the context of your world. Now, if you want to get really creative with your curse words, just make sure if you're coming up with something that is too different from what we know in our language and our culture, is that the characters have to say it and react in a way that makes the reader know that it's a curse word. To go back to my earlier example, that if it's a culture that intelligence is really highly prioritized, calling somebody stupid in our culture is mean. Don't get me wrong, like don't go around calling people stupid, but it's not like a, oh my gosh, you said this. So you have to have the characters say it in a way or react in a way that makes the reader understand the like power of what they're saying. Now, you don't have to necessarily spell it out for your reader. If you use a word that isn't a common curse word, there's the heater, in our language, you don't have to put underneath, that is a curse word, or say like, whoa, the character is swearing. A lot of times what I see that was really effective and subtle is the character is in some situation where swearing makes sense, like maybe they stubbed their toe, maybe they just got really bad news, maybe they just started fighting in the war, something like that. And they'll just say the one word and then the dialogue tag would just be, he cursed. Very easy. Like, I'm trying to think of a goofy example. Say your characters are in a culture that facial hair is frowned upon. I don't know, maybe it's considered dirty or unpure, I don't know. So maybe your character stubs their toe and yells, beards. That way the reader will know, oh, this is a swear word in this culture, without being like, why is he talking about beards? That's a goofy example, so they'll still maybe laugh at it, but you know what I mean. They will definitely understand exactly what you're trying to do. The main thing to remember with curse words is just make sure that it makes sense in your world and in your society. As the writer, you probably really understand your world and culture and all that stuff, so you'll be able to know when you're reading it whether or not this makes sense for your specific book. So that's all I have for today. I hope that was kind of helpful, or at least it gave you something else to think about. If you liked this video, please click the like button so I know, and feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. I make new videos every Wednesday and Saturday, usually reading or writing related, and you can also follow me on Twitter. I have that linked down below as well. So I hope to see you guys next time, and until then, have a great day. Bye!